Biafra, that was something else. Biafra didn't have the luxury to discriminate within its tender borders, and in it she'd been as heroic as any man or any African. And her son, she claimed, was the first Biafra baby. She'd say this even after I'd gotten old enough to decide that it was meaningless, since we'd left so early in my life. The war was declared on July 6, 1967. I was born just past midnight of that day. Family legend had it that while she was in labor, she could hear the first fruits of the federal government's bombing campaign against Biafra, and when she'd given birth, there had been word of casualties nearby. I don't remember Biafra or leaving it. Apparently, all I had with me when I arrived in Jamaica was a song, not an Igbo song, but a Western one, played on the radio about floating in space and choosing never to come down. It was a song about someone named Major Tom, and it eventually became my only memory of my origins in Africa. My mother told me I first heard it in Gabon, the country we'd fled to just before the final collapse, when there were too many dead to still call Biafra a country. She said one of the aid workers played and sang the song often, and that it soothed me to sleep. She claimed that the aid worker's name was Tom, and that he must have been a major like my father, but that stretched credulity. I remember none of this, but I do remember the first time I heard the word Biafra. It was also the first time I remember meeting an African other than myself. I must have been 5 or 6 years old. My mother had returned to America in the wake of my Jamaican grandmother's death, and I'd been adopted by family friends who were members of a rigidly orthodox Seventh-day Adventist community in Montego Bay. The plan was for my mother to send for me once she'd established herself in America with work and a home and had managed all the paperwork necessary for my border crossing. Jamaica is where I began to hunt for that song in order to verify a past before that desperate island. Chapter 1. Space Oddity. My first African arrived while I was chasing Cousin Cecil around the backyard with a gun fashioned out of hardened coconut tree fronds. He had given the fronds to me in trade for the map of a sunken continent I'd torn from either a comic book or one of the science fiction novels I had to smuggle into the house because they were forbidden. Cousin Cecil was the adopted son of the matriarch and patriarch of this home for left-behind children, Big Auntie and Uncle Daddy. Big Auntie was a high-ranking administrator for the Seventh-day Adventist churches on our side of the island. She was as large in physique as she was in authority and volume. She was infamous for her belches, thunderous affirmations of power. Small and wiry, Uncle Daddy was infamous for his wicked laughter, which came even when delivering punishment. He owned and operated a tour bus, a Japanese-made vehicle rare in those days, the pride of the household and their church. Like everyone in a country like Jamaica, Big Auntie and Uncle Daddy were involved in multiple other businesses and schemes to keep their large household afloat. Uncle Daddy was a driver, but also a contractor, a builder, a fisherman, a mechanic. That's why the backyard we were running through was perilous and wonderful, dense with the detritus of his many professional failures and successes. Cousin Cecil was the two-gun kid to my alter ego, the dark and driven phantom, also known as the ghost who walks. My cousin's unknown Middle Eastern origins meant his skin was far closer to white than anyone we knew. He was famous for his ability to shimmy up lean and tall palm trees hand over hand like a bug-eyed yellow monkey. The phantom always struggled to climb those trees, his hands too tender for the rough bark. This time, I cut him off from the nearest tree, cornering him against a wall near a glassy pool of oil where 2 car engines sat exposed like the entrails of prehistoric beasts, which we all agreed they were. Suddenly he bolted toward the doghouse under the mango tree. According to our laws, he would be granted sanctuary there. Before I could head him off, I heard our names called from the front of the house. My name was first, which meant I was the primary concern, though it was